where a somber homeless girl stops Big Tom on the street. What she says leaves him in tears. Part 1. It was a cold winter evening in London. Gray clouds hung low in the sky, threatening snow as people hurried home from work. The street lamps had just come on, casting pools of yellow light on the wet pavement. Tom Baker walked alone through the busy streets. At 7 feet tall with broad shoulders, he stood out in any crowd. People turned to look at him, some whispering, behind their hands. They knew who he was. Once the biggest basketball star in Britain, now a wealthy businessman who appeared on television adverts for sports drinks and trainers. Tonight, Tom walked with his head down, trying not to be noticed. His expensive coat kept out the chill, but something cold had settled inside him that no coat could warm. He had just left a fancy charity dinner where people had paid thousands of pounds to sit at his table and take photos with him. He had smiled and shaken hands, but it all felt empty somehow. 20 years in the spotlight, first as an athlete, then as a businessman, and Tom still wondered if any of it mattered. The money in his bank account grew, but so did the hollow feeling in his chest. "Excuse me, sir?" A small voice barely reached his ears above the city noise. Tom nearly walked on, thinking someone was calling to someone else. Then he felt a light touch on his sleeve. Looking down, he found himself staring into the face of a young girl who couldn't have been more than 10 years old. She had bright blue eyes that seemed too big for her thin face. Her clothes were clean but worn, her coat clearly second-hand, and too thin for the winter weather. Her blonde hair was tied back in a neat ponytail. "You're Tom Baker, aren't you?" she asked. Her voice was clear and confident, though her hands, red from the cold, fidgeted nervously with the straps of her backpack. Tom stopped walking. Most children who recognized him either went shy or asked for selfies for their social media. This girl seemed different. "Yes, I am," he replied with his usual friendly smile. "What's your name?" "I'm Emma," she said. "Emma Brown." She didn't smile back. Instead, she looked at him with a serious expression that seemed too old for her young face. Tom expected her to ask for an autograph or a photo. Perhaps she had a basketball. For him to sign, though basketball wasn't as popular in England as it was in America. He waited, but Emma just stood there looking up at him. "Can I help you with something, Emma?" he finally asked. The girl took a deep breath. "Actually," she said, "I think I can help you." Tom raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Help me?" he repeated. A few people walked around them, some glancing curiously at the giant man talking to a small girl on the street. Emma nodded. She opened her backpack and pulled out something Tom didn't expect, a library book. It was worn around the edges, clearly read many times. She held it up for him to see. The cover showed a younger version of himself in his basketball uniform. It was his autobiography, written 5 years ago after he retired from the sport. "Champions of the Heart More Than Just a Game" was printed across the top. "I've been reading about you," Emma said. "Not just about basketball. About how you went back to school to get your degree because you promised your mom. About how you visit hospitals and community centers to help children." Tom stared at her in shock. Most people only knew him for his famous slam dunks or his television commercials. Few people mentioned his education or his charity work when they met him. "My mom and I," Emma continued, her voice getting smaller, "we live at the shelter down the road, but every day I go to school and then I go to the library." She hugged the book to her chest. "Because of you." As the winter wind blew around, them and the city rushed by. Tom felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. The wall he had built around his heart began to crack. Homeless girl stops Big Tom on the street. What she says leaves him in tears. Part 2. "Because of me?" Tom asked, his voice soft with surprise. Emma nodded, her eyes bright with a wisdom beyond her years. She opened the book to a page marked with a small piece of paper. Tom noticed her small fingers were red from the cold. "Can I read you something?" she asked. Tom nodded, curious now. People were walking around them on the busy street, some giving curious looks to the giant man and the small girl having a serious talk. Emma cleared her throat and began to read. Success isn't just about trophies or money. It's about keeping promises, especially the ones you make to yourself. Every morning when I wake up, I remember where I came from and what I promised my mom before she died, that I would finish school no matter how famous I got in basketball. She looked up at Tom. I read this part over and over. Tom remembered writing those words. His ghostwriter had wanted to cut that section, saying it wasn't exciting enough, but Tom had insisted it stay in. "Why that part?" Tom asked. Emma closed the book carefully. "Because I make promises to myself too," she said. "My mom works 2 jobs now. Sometimes she cries at night when she thinks I'm asleep. We lost our flat 6 months ago when the rent went up." She spoke without self-pity, just stating facts. "But I promised myself I would keep going to school and doing my best. The shelter is noisy, and I can't study there, so I go to the library every day after school." Tom felt a lump growing in his throat. He had grown up poor too, but that was a long time ago. The memory had faded under years of success and comfort. "The librarian, Mrs. Wilson. She knows me now," Emma continued. "She saves the quiet corner desk for me. She says if I keep my grades up, I might get a scholarship someday." Tom looked at Emma more closely. Her coat was too thin, but clean and neatly buttoned. Her shoes were worn but polished. Her hair was tied back carefully. Despite everything, she took pride in herself. "Can I ask you something, Emma?" Tom said. Emma nodded. "Why did you stop me today? Do you want an autograph or something?" Emma shook her head. "No," she said. "I just wanted to say thank you." "Thank me?" Tom was confused. "When kids at school laugh because my clothes are old, or when Mum feels bad because we live in the shelter, I remember what you wrote. You said, and where you start doesn't decide where you finish." She hugged the book to her chest. "That helps me keep going." Tom felt something shift inside him. For years, people had thanked him for basketball games, for signed shirts, for photos. No one had ever thanked him for his words. "I saw you walking past the library," Emma continued. "You looked sad. I just wanted to tell you that your story matters. It helped me." Tom didn't know what to say. The empty feeling that had followed him from the charity dinner was fading, replaced by something warm and real. A cold wind blew down the street. Tom noticed Emma shiver slightly. "Where's your mum now?" he asked gently. "At work?" Emma said. "She cleans offices until 9 o'clock. Then she comes to get me from the library." Tom checked his watch. It was only 6:30. "Have you had dinner?" he asked. Emma shook her head. "I have an apple in my bag for later." Tom made a decision. "Would you like to get something to eat? You can tell me more about school and what you're studying." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? You want to hear about my school?" "I really do," Tom said, and he meant it more than anything he'd said all day. As they walked toward a nearby cafe, Tom felt lighter than he had in years. The fancy people at the charity dinner had wanted his fame. This child had reminded him of his purpose. Homeless girl stops Big Tom on the street. What she says leaves him in tears. Part 3. The small cafe was warm and smelled of fresh bread. Tom led Emma to a table by the window, away from the curious stares of other customers. The waitress recognized Tom right away, her eyes going wide, but she said nothing except to take their orders. "Get whatever you like," Tom told Emma. Emma looked at the menu carefully, her eyes moving over each price. "Is the soup and sandwich okay?" she asked quietly. "Of course." Tom nodded. He ordered the same for himself, plus hot chocolate for both of them. As they waited for their food, Emma pulled out her school notebook. "I got top marks in maths this week," she said, showing him a paper with a gold star at the top. "That's brilliant," Tom said, genuinely impressed. "I was terrible at maths in school." "Really?" Emma looked surprised. "But in your book you said you studied business at university." Tom smiled. "I did. I had to work very hard at it. But just because something is difficult doesn't mean you can't do it." The food arrived, and Tom noticed how carefully Emma ate, taking small bites, savoring each one. He remembered doing the same when he was young, and never knew when the next good meal would come. "Emma," Tom said after they had eaten in comfortable silence for a while, "can I ask you something?" Emma nodded, wiping her mouth neatly with a napkin. "How do you stay so positive with everything that's happened?" Emma thought about it. "My mom says we have to focus on what we can control, not what we can't." She stirred her hot chocolate. "We can't control that our flat got too expensive, but I can control how hard I work at school." Tom felt a lump in his throat. At the fancy dinner earlier, people had complained about the wine being too cold or the server being too slow. Here was this child homeless but focusing on what she could control. "There's something else I remember from your book," Emma said. She didn't need to open it this time. "Excellence isn't one big action. It's lots of small actions every day." Tom remembered writing those words too. His coach had told him that when he was 16. It had changed how he practiced basketball. One good practice wouldn't make him a star, but hundreds of them, day after day, would. "So I try to do small good things every day," Emma continued. "I help younger kids with reading at the shelter. I keep my space tidy so the shelter workers don't have extra work. Small things." The lump in Tom's throat grew bigger. His eyes felt hot. "Are you okay, Mr. Baker?" Emma asked, noticing his expression. "Call me Tom," he said, his voice thick. "And yes, I'm okay. You've reminded me of something important." "What's that?" Emma asked. "That all these fancy dinners and TV adverts don't matter if they don't help real people." Tom took a deep breath. "I've been going through the motions lately, Emma. Showing up at events, smiling for cameras, but not really connecting with why I started doing charity work in the first place." Emma listened carefully, her blue eyes serious. "I started my foundation to help kids like I once was." "Kids like you," Tom said. "But somewhere along the way, it became about fancy dinners and big donors." "Is that why you looked sad when I saw you?" Emma asked. Tom nodded. "I think it was. I felt empty." Emma reached across the table and patted his large hand with her small one. "My mom says that helping others is the best way to feel better." Tom felt the tears threatening to spill now. This child with so little was trying to comfort him. Millionaire with so much. "Your mum sounds very wise," Tom managed to say. "She is," Emma said proudly. "She works really hard. She says our situation is just temporary." Tom looked at his watch. "It's nearly 8. Should we head to the library to meet your mum?" Emma nodded, carefully putting her notebook back in her backpack. As they stepped back into the cold evening, Tom made a decision. The empty feeling was gone. In its place was a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Homeless girl stops Big Tom on the street. What she says leaves him in tears. Part 4. The library was warm and quiet, a welcome change from the cold streets outside. A few people looked up as Tom and Emma walked in, surprise on their faces at seeing the famous basketball player in their local library. Tom hardly noticed them. His mind was full of new ideas. Emma led him to a corner desk where a small pile of books waited. "Mrs. Wilson keeps my spot," she explained, pointing to a kind-looking older woman at the front desk who gave them a smile and a wave. "I come here every day after school," Emma said, sitting down and taking out her homework. "It's peaceful." Tom sat in the chair next to her, his long legs barely fitting under the small desk. "What are you working on tonight?" "Science project," Emma said. "We're learning about plants and how they grow in different conditions." Tom watched as she carefully opened her notebook and started to work. Her handwriting was neat and clear. She bit her lip in concentration as she wrote, reminding Tom of himself as a boy, trying so hard to do well in school despite all the problems at home. "Emma," he said quietly after a few minutes, "can I ask about your mom?" Emma looked up. "What? About her? What does she do? Her jobs, I mean." "She cleans offices in the morning," Emma said. "Then she works at a shop in the afternoon, and 3 nights a week she cleans this big office building." Emma pointed out the window to a tall glass tower a few streets away. That's a lot of work, Tom said. Emma nodded. She's very tired sometimes, but she never complains. She turned back to her homework, then paused. She's trying to save enough for a deposit on a flat. It's hard because rents are so high. Tom thought about his own home, a large house with 5 bedrooms that he lived in alone. Something felt wrong about that now. What happened? He asked gently. With your old flat, I mean. Emma's face grew serious. Mum got sick last year. She couldn't work for 2 months. We used all our savings to pay rent, but then... She shrugged. The landlord said he was sorry, but business is business. Tom felt a hot flash of anger, then sadness. He had forgotten what it was like to be at the mercy of others, to have your whole life changed by one stroke of bad luck. Emma, he said, choosing his words carefully. I want to help you and your mum. Emma looked up, her eyes suddenly wary. We don't take charity, she said firmly. Mum says we can manage on our own. Tom smiled. He understood pride. It's not charity, he said. Think of it as an investment. What do you mean? I run a foundation that helps talented kids get education and housing, Tom explained. Based on what I've seen of your schoolwork and heard about your mum, you'd be perfect for our program. Emma's eyes widened. Really? Really? Tom nodded. But I'd need to talk to your mum about it. She'll be here soon, Emma said, checking the clock on the wall. She always comes at 9. As if on cue, the library door opened. A woman walked, in looking tired but neat in a simple coat. Her face had the same determined look as Emma's, the same bright blue eyes. She glanced around, spotted Emma, and started walking toward them. Then she noticed Tom. She stopped in her tracks, her eyes going from Tom to Emma and back again. Confusion and worry crossed her face. Mum, Emma called, waving. Come meet Mr. Baker. Tom, he's the one from my book. Tom stood up as Emma's mother approached, her steps cautious. He held out his hand. Mrs. Brown, I'm Tom Baker. Your daughter has been telling me about you. Helen, she said automatically, shaking his hand. Her hand was rough from work, but her grip was firm. Emma, what's going on? Why are you bothering this gentleman? She's not bothering me at all, Tom said quickly. In fact, she's helped me more than she knows. Helen looked confused. Helped you? How? Tom felt tears coming to his eyes again. How could he explain that this child had reminded him of his purpose in life? That she had shown him what really mattered? Mum, Emma said excitedly, Tom wants to talk to you about his foundation. He says we might qualify for help with housing and education. Homeless girl stops Big Tom on the street. What she says leaves him in tears. Part 5. Helen's face went through several emotions at once. Surprise, confusion, suspicion, and finally a mother's protective caution. That's very kind, she said carefully to Tom. But we don't need charity. We're managing fine on our own. Tom recognized the pride in her voice. It was the same pride he had seen in his own mother, years ago, when neighbors offered hand-me-downs or food. It's not charity, Tom said gently. My foundation helps families who are working hard but need a bridge to get to the next step. From what Emma has told me, that describes you perfectly. Helen looked at her daughter, who was watching them both with hopeful eyes. Emma, pack up your things, please, Helen said. It's getting late. As Emma gathered her books, Helen turned, back to Tom. Mr. Baker, Tom, please. Tom, Helen said, lowering her voice. I appreciate your interest, but we've had our hopes raised before. People make promises. They don't always keep them. Tom nodded. He understood. Would you give me 10 minutes? Just to explain what we do? Helen checked her watch. The shelter had rules about coming in late. We have to be at the shelter by 10, she said. I can drive you, Tom offered, or get you a taxi. Helen hesitated, then nodded. 10 minutes. They sat at a table in the corner of the library. Emma pretended to read a book, but Tom could see her watching them from the corner of her. Your daughter is remarkable," Tom said. "Her attitude, her focus on school despite everything. She reminds me of myself at that age." Helen's face softened. "She's always been special. Even when things got bad, she never complained. Just asked if she could still go to the library." Tom explained how his foundation worked. They helped families with housing, education support, and job training. They didn't just give handouts. They created partnerships with families who were already trying to help themselves. "We have a flat that's just become available," Tom said. "It's small, but it's clean and safe, near good schools. The rent would be based on what you can afford until you get back on your feet." He saw hope flicker in Helen's tired eyes, quickly followed by doubt. "What's the catch?" she asked directly. Tom smiled. "No catch. Just two things we ask. First, that you keep working toward your goals. Saving, improving your job situation, whatever that looks like for you. Second, that someday when you can, you help someone else who needs it." Helen looked over at Emma, who was still pretending not to listen. "Why us?" Helen asked quietly. "There are thousands of families in our situation." Tom took a deep breath. "Because your daughter reminded me why I started my foundation in the first place." His voice cracked slightly. "I've been going through the motions lately, Helen. Fancy fundraisers, shaking hands with rich people, but forgetting the real reason I wanted to help." Helen waited, watching his face. "Emma showed me her book today. My book. She quoted words I wrote years ago, words I had almost forgotten myself." Tom felt tears coming to his eyes again. She made those words real again. A tear slipped down his cheek. Tom, who never cried in public, didn't try to hide it. "Your daughter changed something in me today," he said simply. "Let me help change things for you both." Helen was quiet for a long moment, then she called, "Emma, come here, please." Emma hurried over, her backpack clutched to her chest. "What do you think?" Helen asked her daughter. "Should we trust Mr. Baker, Tom, and his foundation?" Emma looked at Tom, her eyes serious. "Yes," she said firmly. "He keeps his promises. It's in his book." 6 months later, Emma and Helen moved out of the small foundation flat and into their own place. Helen had found a better job with Tom's help. Emma had won a scholarship to a good school. But the biggest change was in Tom himself. That chance meeting had sparked something new. He created a special program for homeless children who showed academic promise. He called it Emma's Readers. And every month Tom visited the library where he had met Emma. He sat with children who needed someone to believe in them, just as Emma had been.